on TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
I'm Piers Morgan. Uncensored tonight is Snow woke and the 7 diversity hires. Disney stirs outrage by abolishing the dwarfs in this politically sensitive remake of the fairy tale classic. Is it time to stand up for the little guys against diversity-obsessed Hollywood? We'll debate. Plus, records are smashed as heat waves spark wildfires and deadly temperatures across the globe. Skeptics call it climate alarmism. But should we be genuinely alarmed? We'll debate. And we're live in Death Valley. From sweltering heat to cool as ice, actor, business mogul and rap legend Ice Cube goes uncensored with me one-on-one.
Live from the News Building in London, this is Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Good evening from London and welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I've always used this show as a platform to stand up for the little guys. Never before have I meant that quite so literally as I do tonight. Behind-the-scenes pictures from Disney's live-action remake of Snow White were leaked this weekend, and there appears to be a sizable problem. Where are the dwarfs? They're gone, cancelled, banished, and not this time by the wicked queen. Now, they've bitten the poison apple of diversity and inclusion, which has turned out to exclude them. Disney's PC reimagining of the legendary fairy tale doesn't feature 7 dwarves at all. Instead, it's 7 magical creatures of varying sizes, shapes, ethnicities and agendas. The lead role of Snow White is played by Hispanic actress Rachel Zegler. And I've got no real issue with that, although, of course, Snow White was called Snow White because her skin was as white as the snow. And that was, of course, in a fairy tale. We've been lectured for years about cultural appropriation and the vital importance of Hispanics playing Hispanics, trans actors for trans characters, disabled stars for disabled parts. But where's the consistency? In the original fairy tale, the Brothers Grimm wrote that Snow White is called Snow White because, as I say, her skin was Snow White. That's why her mother called her Snow White. And that's the problem when you start pandering to the permanently offended. You can never go far enough. Last year, Peter Dinklage, probably the most famous dwarf in the world, slammed Disney for including dwarfs in its movie at all.
You're still telling the story of Snow White,
yeah.
and 7 dwarfs.
Sure.
So, look, take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That makes no sense to me.
Well,
You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing?
Well, Peter Dinklage got his way. The dwarves have now been sidelined, cancelled. As critics in the dwarf community pointed out, though, it's all well and good for Peter Dinklage to take this moralising stand. Now, he's already made millions of dollars and become a megastar by playing a dwarf in shows like Game of Thrones. Disney, for its part, said it's taking a different approach to avoid reinforcing stereotypes. But what exactly are the stereotypes in Snow White that are so problematic? The 7 dwarves, you may recall, are industrious, inventive, friendly, and yes, they're small. What's wrong with any of that? What's stereotypical? What's damaging? What's harmful? And then another blow for diminutive actors. Trailers for the new Willy Wonka movie reveal something really quite sinister.
You're the funny little man who's been following me.
I will have you know that I am a perfectly respectable size for an Oompa Loompa.
That's right. Regular-sized irritant Hugh Grant has taken a plum role as one of Wonka's pint-sized assistants, again depriving a talented dwarf actor of a role he was born to play. And that's the problem with Hugh Grant. Never cares about the little guys. Well, joining me is Dylan Posel, who played Hornswoggle, the leprechaun, in WWE between 2006 and 2016, and by the podcaster and commentator James Barr. All right, James, you've got no problem with what Disney are doing. You think this is progressive and inclusive, and all those moaning about it should shut up.
I think you should live in the 1930s, actually, Piers, because that's where you belong, really, listening to what you were just saying then. Also, I'm going to quote Warwick Davis, because he said he finds it patronising when people are offended on his behalf. Mm-hmm. And you've just spent a 5-minute monologue being offended on his behalf. Mm-hmm. And I think that's ridiculous.
Well, let me bring in Dylan, because Dylan is also offended, and he happens to be a dwarf actor. Dylan, I've got to say, I was very curious when I saw what Peter Dinklage came out and said, because I did wonder who appointed him the head of the dwarf actor community. And it turns out nobody did other than him. And the people who, it seems to me, have really suffered in all this are the 6 dwarf actors who would have expected to have roles in this remake in a massive Hollywood blockbuster, who are now not going to have that experience, all the money, all the fame that may have come with that. What is your response to that?
So it's not a progression at all to me. My issue with it is exactly what you said. There are actors, dwarf actors, that live, that dream to be in a major motion picture such as this Disney remake. And now, because Peter Dinklage said what he said last year, now it's taken away. And it's taken away because of quote unquote progression and all that. And it's not right, because these are roles made for actors of my stature, roles that aren't ever really given. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. These dwarf roles are for people of my stature.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right. And not only that, but now think about the additional stunt actors or body doubles or that. Now you're talking multiple actors of my stature that don't get these major roles. And why? What's the reasoning? Because we're supposed to be progressive and we're supposed to just not view them as that?
Well, you know the
these
irony.
Were heroes. All of these dwarves, all of these dwarves took care of Snow White.
Right.
They all had characteristics, separate characteristics. They weren't these cave-dwelling monsters that people speak of. They all had 7 different characteristics for 7 different actors that from my community, and I don't feel it's right that got taken away from us.
And utterly agree with you. And the irony is that they profess, these progressives, to want to do this to protect you, right? They protect dwarf actors from being, somehow smeared. But you don't feel that way at all.
Peter Dinklage spoke up about this, and that was my issue. He had in the past no issue cashing checks that were made for dwarf roles like Elf and all of that. Yes, he blew away the barriers when he did his roles that weren't necessarily made for a dwarf. But the Elf role was made for a dwarf. That check cleared just fine. So now that he's gone and done that, the progression of dwarf actors, it doesn't sit right with me.
No,
that this guy who is exactly what you said, what gave him the voice for all of our community?
Yeah,
why?
I was honest. I think
a complete hypocrite. Let me bring James back in. So
when
James,
Piers Morgan is agreeing with you, I think you need to be concerned. I'll say that for the.
So you're telling a dwarf actor what he should feel. Having literally just lectured me about speaking for someone in the dwarf community, Warwick Davis, you now accuse a dwarf actor.
No, it's not what I said. I said that if you're siding with anyone, you've got to worry. Right. What I'd like to say actually is that I kind of mostly agree with what you're saying.
No. Now you're. Sir, that's just taking a pot shot there.
No,
it
is absolutely taking a pot shot. But I do agree with what you're saying. I completely agree with your point of view, and I think that's really important. But I can only speak from my experience, and as a gay man, I know that growing up, I witnessed gay people being villains in movies when I was
7 dwarves aren't villains.
And that I think stereotypes are really important to
What stereotype do you think they represent?
In the universe of Snow White, wouldn't it be better if dwarves
This isn't a part of this about the stereotype.
Right.
This is about roles that were made for people of my stature that don't have the chance to go out for other roles normally.
But you, James,
so
you want to stop Dylan getting a role in a Hollywood film.
I am not going to get into an attack on a dwarf.
You don't want a dwarf actor to land a role playing a dwarf part.
Listen, a dwarf can play a dwarf part, but I think it's important to change narratives that don't fit in today's society. And really,
Which is that narrative?
It might be better if dwarves just exist in normal roles everywhere, because they do exist.
What was so bad about the way dwarves were depicted in Snow White? Have I missed something?
Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about...
That's what I'm kind of wondering as well.
I don't represent Disney, but I'm just saying I think I see their point of view.
What's their point of view? What was so bad about the depiction of the dwarves?
Why are you so upset about a movie changing with the times and moving forward?
Because I think that, honestly, with great respect...
there is real news we could be discussing.
No, but this is real news if you're a dwarf actor who are now out of work because of virtue signaling idiots.
But you're just
who
using
think that
this...
everything has to be rewritten
You are just
to be
using Dylan
inclusive,
as a cheap
when in
shot.
fact it's not inclusive at all.
No, you're using Dylan as a cheap shot to attack a wokie. That's
I don't think
happening.
Dylan feels I'm using him as a cheap shot. And what I would say about the wokie thing is this. I have spent the last year listening to people tell me only gay actors should play gay parts. Only Welsh actors, so Michael Sheen, should play Welsh characters. And so on and so on and so on.
Conversations are nuanced.
But the moment we have dwarf roles, which are the most famous dwarf roles in Hollywood history, then the only people apparently who can't play them are dwarf actors.
Weren't dwarf
and I
roles.
see there
It's a cartoon,
stinking
Piers.
woke
So
hypocrisy.
It has not changed. It was a cartoon. Those weren't actually dwarfs in the movie. They were drawn, OK? So firstly...
They were drawn as dwarfs.
No, that is...
But it's a
literally-
story about dwarves, sir.
Dwarfs.
Well, they
It's a
shouldn't be
story
called that.
about
They should be
dwarves.
called...
They shouldn't be called dwarves.
No, they should be called people with
They shouldn't be
dwarfism.
called.
What's wrong with being
they shouldn't
called
be
dwarves?
called dwarves.
Nothing, but that's not the correct
That's the
term.
story.
Dylan,
The story
apparently
is
you
literally
shouldn't, you're not
Snow
allowed
White
to call
and the
yourself...
Seven
Dylan can call
Dwarfs.
himself whatever
Apparently,
he
Dylan, you're not allowed to call yourself dwarves, apparently.
I would love to hear, what should I call myself, sir?
I think you should call yourself whatever you feel comfortable with, but as a person...
He calls himself a dwarf.
Well, that's
A
great.
dwarf.
Then. Good
Yeah.
for you. I'm happy.
So now, sir, let me pause that. So it shouldn't be called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It should
Listen,
just be
I
called
do not want to
Snow
get
White.
cancelled
So are you
because I
saying-
think your point of view is more important than mine right now. But what I'm annoyed about is Piers trying to take a cheap shot at someone that believes in society moving forward.
Yeah, I'm actually
because really, if
I'm actually exposing the hypocrisy of the woke mentality of only gay people can play gay parts, only trans actors can play trans parts, and so on and so on and so on.
I think we want
right
to get
to the
to a
point,
place where
right to the
everyone
point.
can play
Snow
every
White and the
role.
Seven Dwarfs has to be cancelled because you're not allowed to have dwarf
You
actors.
should be happy, Piers, because it means that now you can play your dream role of Grumpy.
I would love to play Grumpy. I loved all the dwarves in that movie. They were great. Let me ask
now
you
you're
guys.
being a hypocrite.
guys,
You'd love to play Grumpy, but you're taking a role away from a dwarf
The issue
actor.
at hand.
No, I would play a fully grown Grump quite happily.
By taking away a role from a
Let
dwarf.
me ask you, Dylan, about the Hugh Grant playing an Oompa Loompa, because again, it seems to me we've got a clip of him playing an Oompa Loompa. Let's have a look at this.
So you're the funny little man who's been following me.
I will have you know that I am a perfectly respectable size for an Oompa Loompa.
An Oompa what now?
Allow me to refresh your memory.
Oh, I don't think I want to hear that.
Too late. I've started dancing now. Once we've started, we can't stop.
So you're the funny little man who's been following me.
Now, they use CGI there, Dylan, to effectively make him into an Oompa Loompa dwarf.
So now-
what do you feel about that?
Yes, sir. So now we're not only using CGI and spending extra money and funding for these movies when we could just cast dwarves in that role. Whether it be one dwarf or multiple, that like they have been in the past. Now you're taking at least one role away or multiple roles away for Oompa Loompa characters. That's what they were in the past. And why, again, I go back to my stance on these roles in Hollywood in general are very hard for people of my community to get, besides the elf and the leprechaun and this and that. So why are they being taken from my community? That's my issue here.
Well,
It's
you know
not
why? You know
anything
why,
about the
Dylan?
stereotypes
You know why?
or
Because
anything.
people like James here, they think it's progressive and inclusive.
Nah,
when in
see-
fact it's regressive.
Those are not my words,
it's
actually.
regressive
Piers,
and exclusive.
They are your words.
Pierce,
Dylan?
Pierce, I will agree with the mindset of it's not right. I don't know. James seems to be in partial agreement with me on the dwarf actors and the roles with that these should be. But I don't. On the other stuff, I can't speak on that. Obviously, I'm focused fully on the dwarf community really losing roles in these films.
Yeah, I think James
And
started-
with
James
all the
started-
SAG strikes, with all the writer strikes,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the
this is-
actor strikes.
I do agree with
it's
you, and I
important-
think all I'm trying to say is that I think it's a nuanced conversation, and there's a few different points of view that are valid. And ultimately, in my experience as a gay man, the reason we're upset about gay people not getting gay roles in movies is because we're not getting straight roles as well. And until we are, it's unfair that those roles are taken away from us. So in that respect,
What's that got to do with
that's-
dwarf actors? Because
and
they
that's
can't play.
something-
They can't play
Well,
regular sized parts.
I think Peter Dinklage's original point is that he would like to see more dwarves in films in general, not just playing dwarfs.
That
in
wasn't
general.
what he said.
Literally, I should. A person of my stature should be able to go out for the same as a 6'5", 200-pound human. But it's just not that way. And I'm okay with that. In reality, I'm okay with that. It's understandable to me. But when it's these roles that are made for people of my stature, that's where I have the issue.
You know what, Dylan? The movie, one of the great movies of all time, is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If dwarf actors in Hollywood are not picked to play those roles, I don't know what roles you're supposed to be playing. It's unbelievably patronising. They've done this under the banner of so-called progression.
And it's not, again, like I said, these dwarves in that movie or in this story aren't viewed poorly, I don't believe. No. They're all separate characters that are actually heroes for this lady.
Yes.
And they take care and they take this lady in.
They save
her.
So
they're viewed so well to society.
They saved the woman.
Now
they're hardworking, they're wealthy, they are kind, they are generous-hearted. It's hard to think of a more positive narrative about any people at all.
Well, let's just go back to the 1930s, Piers. I think you'd be happy there.
You know what, James?
Blackface would exist still.
No, it's not blackface.
James,
it's not blackface. And what you're now doing, because you know you've lost the argument.
No, there's no argument.
And you know you've been embarrassed by the argument.
You're not embarrassed.
You are
embarrassed. An argument that doesn't exist.
Hold on, guys.
We agree with each other.
Please.
All right. You know what? You do agree with him now because you realise the futility of your argument.
James, you can't go, oh, you got to go back to 1930s. No, James, if you agree with what I'm saying,
I agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with anything that Piers.
Yeah, here's the thing, Dylan. Dylan, just to be clear.
He literally just said what I said, James.
Dylan, just to be clear, he doesn't agree when I say it, but when you say it, he agrees.
Because you're not a dwarf.
That right now, I'm not a dwarf, no. But that right there is the hypocrisy of the woke brigade. Dylan,
okay. So let me
just say, Dylan, I've got to let you go, unfortunately.
Real quickly, please. Piers, quickly.
Final word, Dylan.
Piers, James, let me ask you this. So if a writer writes a piece on what I'm saying, is it wrong of them? Because essentially, that's the same as the words coming out of my mouth.
What? Yeah, but you're not saying that I am a woke hypocrite, and Piers is, and that's what I disagree with, because I'm absolutely not. So when I'm saying that I agree with Piers, it's nothing to do with your...
We're going to leave it there. Just to be clear, Dylan, he disagrees with what I say, but when you say exactly the same thing, he completely agrees with you.
You're so annoying.
Is James Barr right to a T. Dylan,
nonsense.
Fantastic having you on Piers Morgan Uncensored. You did such a brilliant job in highlighting why this is so ridiculous. Shame on Disney, and I hope you get another brilliant role very soon. I really do.
Well, I hope so too, and I hope that this really kind of resounds with how I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't speak for the whole dwarf culture and community, but this is literally how I feel.
Piers Morgan speaks for the entire dwarf community.
I've got to leave it there, Dylan.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Dylan, for joining me. James,
that's helpful, I think.
Thank you for joining me because
you're so welcome.
You came on and you beautifully highlighted the shocking
hypocrisy
of your culture.
Absolutely.
Uncensored next. Temperature records tumble as a deadly heat wave sparks wildfires and warnings to stay indoors, albeit not in the UK. Death Valley could be about to register the hottest temperature ever recorded on planet Earth. We're live there next. Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. After a weekend of deadly temperatures across parts of Asia, Europe and North America, meteorologists are expecting more record-breaking temperatures in the next few days. In China this weekend, temperatures hit 52.2 degrees Celsius. In Italy, temperatures could surpass 46 degrees Celsius by next Sunday. And in the USA, after a weekend high of 53, some experts reckon Death Valley could, maybe as soon as today, register the highest temperature recorded on Earth. So is it another freak weather event, or is it the red alert skeptics may need to look up and acknowledge the immediate realities of climate change? Joining me now from Sweden, the author of Best Things First, a man with plenty to say on climate change, Bjorn Lomborg. In Washington, atmospheric meteorologist Matthew Capucci. But first, let's go live to Gia Ponce, who's a park ranger at Death Valley, which may well break all-time records, maybe even as early as today. Well, welcome to you, Gia. What's it like today? How does it feel, this kind of heat?
It's pretty warm. So forecasted highs today are supposed to be 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 53 or so. Definitely normal for this time of year, but we are having an excessive heat warning all week long. Any visitors to the park should definitely take precautions.
What is interesting is we're now seeing those temperatures in China. We're seeing them in parts of Europe nearly at that level as well. What does that tell you about what may be going on with our climate?
We might see some impacts. Here in Death Valley, we're definitely seeing some impacts. I mean, 7 of Death Valley's hottest summers occurred in just the last 10 years, and it's only predicted to get higher. We're seeing impacts in our wildlife, in our vegetation. Bristlecone pine trees, we do have them here in Death Valley, and they're starting to see the effects as well.
So really tangible things that you can see now on an almost annual basis and getting worse. Are you fearful about what may be coming?
We're definitely concerned, and we're definitely trying to take steps to address them, trying to plan ahead for the future, seeing as we're protecting Death Valley for future generations. But yeah, it's definitely concerning.
And there are lots of people coming as tourists to Death Valley purely to experience the heat. Is that a sensible idea?
Well, it's definitely possible to visit Death Valley during the hottest times of the summer. We just urge people to do so safely. Now, Death Valley is one of the largest national parks in the lower 48 states. We're 3.4 million acres large. We're roughly the size of the state of Connecticut. We're larger than a few European countries. So it's a big park, lots of big wilderness spaces. And all we ask of visitors, if you're going to come, you definitely want to just drive around to the popular viewpoints, stick to the paved roads, and stick close to your air-conditioned car. It's really important to limit outdoor exposure.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that you're staying hydrated and wearing all sorts of sun protection.
Gia Ponce, I appreciate you taking time out from what must be a busy time for you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Gia Ponce, there is a warden down at Death Valley, which could literally kill you in these heats. Let's go now to Matthew Capucci. You're an atmospheric meteorologist. Matthew, what does this tell you? We hear there's 7 in the last 10 years, record-breaking levels of heat in Death Valley alone. We're now seeing, obviously, China, many parts of Europe having record highs. What do you put this down to? Is there any other explanation than climate change?
Well, most definitely. It's not really one or the other. Weather is always going to happen. We'll have ups and downs and random extreme events because weather, after all, is just kind of the average, the sum of a bunch of different crests and troughs. That said, we have a background of human-induced climate change raising the floor and sort of nudging events, exceptional events, into record territory. Imagine, for example, that I want to be a basketball player. I'm not a super tall person. Once in a great while, I might randomly get a layup. But if suddenly the floor of that basketball court keeps rising and rising a little bit, the odds of me getting a layup or a slam dunk go up and up and up. So the same thing's happening here. Yes, it's summertime. Yes, it's hot, but we're pushing these heat domes, these big sprawling blobs of high pressure and hot air into record territory. So these kind of exceptional events will happen much more often. Okay,
Bjorn Lomborg, you're a climate skeptic, climate change skeptic. Why, given all this apparent evidence that the planet is literally overheating?
So, Piers, thanks. First of all, I think Matt and I are totally in agreement. Global warming is real, and as temperatures rise, you're going to see more heat waves. That's not what I'm skeptical about. It's the implications that we're being told. So one is that means we should start implementing policies that essentially disassemble the entire growth machinery of the last 200 years. So it's going to cost hundreds of trillions of dollars, and it'll have absolutely no impact over the next couple of decades. No, if you actually want to help people, and you need to help people with heat, you need more air conditioning, you need cheap energy, you need more climate resilient cities. And then you also need to recognize that while heat is certainly dangerous, it still is only about 1/10 as dangerous as cold around the world. And so if you really care about saving human lives, you need to recognize as temperatures rise, you're going to see more heat waves. That's a problem. You're also going to see fewer cold waves, which is great. And it actually saves more people right now. So again, we need to recognize, yes, there is a problem, but it's not the solution that we're normally told.
How much of this problem do you believe is man-made, that we could avoid if we change our behavioral patterns?
So again, I'm a social scientist, so I simply buy into what the UN Climate Panel tells us. It's somewhere between 50 and 100% caused by human beings. So we are the main reason for this. We need to fix this in the long run, absolutely, and we do that through innovation. That's how we solve most problems in the world. But we do not do it by making enormous promises that we're not actually going to keep spending hundreds of trillions of dollars and not actually helping the people who are affected by heat right now. The way you do that is by making climate resilient cities, by making them cooler. You paint the rooftops white, you make more white areas, you make more greenery, and then you make energy so cheap that people can actually afford to keep both their air conditioning running in the summer, but also their heating running in the winter, the heating that kills 10 times as many people as heat waves does.
Some people may listen to that and say, okay, but aren't you just effectively pulling a Nero? You're not just fiddling while the world burns.
I don't think I'm not even sure what pulling an era means, but it does. What I'm trying to say is we need to do stuff that actually help people. I thought if you think back in France in 2003, there was a huge heat wave. It killed probably 45,000 people in Paris, France. Almost all politicians said the way we're going to fix that is by implementing the Kyoto Protocol. No, that will help nothing. It'll still mean it'll get warmer, but slightly less warmer towards the end of the century. That's ridiculous. The way you should help these elderly people and the next generations of elderly people is by making sure you have air conditioning in elderly homes. And that's indeed what France had. So when they had much higher heat waves, many fewer people died. That's how you actually help people. Yes, we should also fix climate change in the long run, but smartly, not stupidly.
Okay, Bjorn Lomborg and Matthew Benucci, thank you both very much indeed. Uncensored next, after all that heat, time to cool down. I'll be talking to rapper, actor and business mogul Ice Cube. Join me after the break for an interesting interview with a fascinating guy. Good evening, I'm Piers Morgan, Uncensored in New York City. Tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored in Kyiv, Ukraine. Tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored, a special edition from Qatar. Tonight, a special edition of Piers Morgan Uncensored. Martina Navratilova.
You're making me cry again.
Do you believe you can win this war? So are you going to run again?
I think a lot of people are going to be very happy.
Yes, I feel betrayed.
They're trying to force you out.
Yes, not only the coach, but the other 2 or 3 guys there around.
All these people protesting just don't get it.
Many of them don't.
Isn't that slightly patronising?
I would call him out the window.
Do you think we should have psychiatric assessments?
I'd be there for weeks.
Could you keep quiet? I'm trying to read a book here.
Take spare and chuck it where it belongs, in the bin.
Where's Suggsy? All the madness, where are they?
Where's their cheering?
Where's Brian May, for God's sake? Why isn't Brian May? Why isn't someone on the roof of the palace?
With the castle,
Where have they gone?
It's from that much cushier jail that Ghislaine Maxwell agreed to be interviewed for the very first time.
Well, he wish I'd never met him.
You're shaking your head. The British people are up in arms.
Boris Johnson is out as British Prime Minister.
The Conservative Party can certainly win the next election.
Can we?
Yes,
Labour
absolutely.
29 points ahead in the polls. Can we?
This is the royal tea. Question is, did he say, yes, I have taken drugs, and they bent the rules to give him the visa, or lied on the visa application form and therefore got it?
What is a woman made?
Yes! Let it roll.
A woman is given to the man in marriage.
Andrew, you're simply wrong. I've been a terrible liar.
That's true.
I mean, would you be prepared to say that?
I've been a terrible liar.
Are you sorry you said that?
No.
I don't think it matters. You should be.
Absolutely not.
You should be.
Interview adjourned.
Which is your favourite nickname that Trump's given you? Rhonda Sanctimonious or Meatball Ron?
I seen you clown Tommy Fury, so please go easy on me, bro. Please go easy.
You weren't asked to give evidence to the grand jury.
I have nothing to hide. I'm the only one that has been telling the truth.
If you had to come up against a team that had a Russian player, would you shake their hand?
No chance. No chance.
It's life and death.
This is war.
Piers Morgan, uncensored!
What went wrong? She said, well, I've only got 2 years. And I said, you'll have 2 months if you carry on like this.
What's your response to him?
The whole nation deserves to know what happened.
You don't drink, never taken drugs. You're stinking rich. Should we be concerned, Prime Minister?
Real opinions, real debate.
Is about you and your opinions.
If you're thinking about it,
We're talking about it.
It's all about me. That was a joke.
This is Talk TV.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Ice Cube is a hip-hop superstar turned actor who, ever since joining the group NWA, has never been afraid of stirring controversy with his words. Well, he sat down with me in New York last week to talk politics, money, and how he responded when Ye, Kanye West, accused him of inspiring his anti-Semitic outbursts. And I'm joined now by Ice Cube. Well, Ice Cube, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's great to have you.
It's good to be here.
A bona fide legend.
Oh, thank you.
You like being called a legend?
It's cool. You know, it's cool. It's interesting because I'm still, here, and I still feel like I got so much to do. So it's nice.
Let me ask you this: there's been a lot of stuff about the state of the world, about the state of America. Where do you see things right now?
I think people are very polarized in all kind of ways. People are afraid to speak out because of the cancel culture that we have today. So I just think, people are afraid and they're running to their corners, In
a way, it is a cancel culture. It behaves like that.
It does, because it makes not only the person that's getting canceled, they're trying to shut them up, but anybody's watching now, they shut up because they say, if it can happen to this guy, it can happen to me. So by smashing somebody who says something that you might not like and canceling them, it actually reverberates throughout the whole community, and everybody now is watching what they say all the time.
Well, what's the answer to this? Because I think it's crazy that in a democracy like the United States, like the United Kingdom, that people are too frightened to speak their mind, to say what they think. What do we do about this?
I think you say what you want to say, and to hell with the consequences. You got to be willing to fight for your rights and fight for what you believe in. And if you're a person who believes in freedom of speech, you have to fight and say what you feel and let the chips fall where they may, and stand on that. And, it may not be an easy road, but I think you feel better about yourself when you say what needs to be said at the time it needs to be said, and not afterwards where you go home and think, I should have said this when that guy was there, or when I was there, I should have said that and I didn't. That haunts you more.
You can definitely say what the hell you like on this show. It's called Uncensored for a reason.
Well, that's why I'm here, man. That's
You've
what
always
I'm
been
all about.
uncensored. Let me ask you this. Is America more racist or less racist than when you were a kid?
I think it's pretty much the same, because it's institutionalized, and the institution takes on different faces, so to speak. But I don't know if racism in the financial sector or has gotten any better. We still have a hard time getting capital when we need it. We still have a hard time having that access to those, currency streams that's out there. And so it affects us in the same way. In 1865, Black people own maybe 1 or 2% of America. And I believe we're still in that same place.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's barely changed. The last rapper that I interviewed in this very studio was Kanye West.
Yeah.
You've had a wobbly relationship with him, but you're back on track. I read that you saw him, in fact, a few days ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. We were always cool. He spoke my name without really explaining what he meant. And I just really couldn't leave that statement out there without, he never explained what he meant. And so I had to, kind of rebut that. But since then we've talked, and I think Ye understands that generalizing will always get you in more hot water than being very specific. Because
I haven't really seen much of him since I interviewed him. He's kind of disappeared. How is he? How's he dealing with what's happened to him?
I believe he's doing great. He's still, dealing with some people trying to hold on to his money. But for the most part, I believe he's in a good space. I think he's, learned a lot from this past year, and, hopefully he'll come out better on the other side.
When you saw some of the crazier things he was saying, the anti-Semitic statements he was making, what did you feel as someone who knew him well? What did you feel about that?
I felt that if he was really upset with specific people, that the message he was saying would kind of hijack what he's really upset about, and that's kind of what happened. You just can't generalize. You have to be specific, especially if you're talking about anybody, any race of people. You have to be specific on who exactly you're talking about.
Let's talk about the music industry. Huge amount of attention being given to artificial intelligence now.
Yeah.
Clearly it has awesome power, not least to replicate how people like you would make music. What do you feel about that?
I think it's terrible. I think it's going to make people lazier, less creative. Could you imagine if an actor, if I decided not to do a sequel and the movie company said, we have the rights to your likeness.
Right.
We're going to put you in the sequel whether you want to be or not, because we have the right to. So now they use AI to put Ice Cube in a movie I don't want to be in, saying things I don't want to say and doing things I wouldn't do. So to me, that's terrible. Or taking an artist that's passed away and having them do a new song with lyrics that they may not agree with. It's just, it's a slippery slope that will hurt us more than it will help us.
Is there a benefit that you can see where you could use AI to enhance what you do?
We use, automation here and there to help advance and make us sound better. But, once you take the paintbrush out of the painter's hand, is it really a painting from him,
You turned down a $9 million movie role in 2021 because you wouldn't take the COVID vaccine. It was being mandated in Hollywood at the time. Any regrets? There's a lot of money.
Not at all. Not one regret.
My thought when I heard that story? You must be even richer than I think you are.
Everybody can use $9 million. I don't care how rich they think they are. Everybody can use that money. I could have used that money. My family could have used that money. But I felt like, your health is worth more than all the money in the world. Because if you had all the money in the world and you wasn't healthy, you would use that money to get healthy. So to me, it was an experimental drug, and they had no time to really see the long-term effects like most. And I'm vaccinated. I've been vaccinated when I was a kid, but these are drugs that have been tested for decades, and you know pretty much most of the side effects.
I mean, ultimately, I felt about COVID vaccines that once it was established against what they initially thought, that you could still transmit the virus whether you were vaccinated or not, to me it becomes a personal choice. Then it's down to you.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, the pharmaceutical companies made a lot of money. Businesses closed. You know, it's like an incentive, even when things are not going right, to keep going. It's kind of like the war machine. You know, if you make the bullets and the Band-Aids, you're going to always want to be in war because it's profitable.
Have you worked out who you're going to vote for next year?
No.
It's what we would call in Britain a Hobson's choice.
What's that mean?
It means it doesn't matter which way you go, you're going to get screwed. I mean,
Wow.
Joe Biden looks like he barely knows what day it is. Donald Trump might be in a prison cell. So if that's the choice, what does it say about America?
That, you know, America needs to re-examine where we are, where we're going, who we want to lead us, and what kind of country we actually want to be. You know, a lot of choices. You know, I've become independent in all this because I like to sit back and see, you know, who's really gonna be the best choice. Unfortunately, the choices are not always top notch, so to speak.
Have you thought of running yourself?
Oh, I would never run.
There might be a vacancy now. Kanye ceded the territory.
Nah, I don't want to be a politician. You know, they can king me. They want to make me king. I'll be a king.
Well, actually, I've always felt if it hadn't been for King George III being so useless, you could still have the monarchy here, and it could be King Piers. I mean, right? Maybe I could share the throne with you. Yeah. King Piers and King Cube. What do you think?
Hey, I think it's only room for one king, man. You know what I'm saying?
Are you telling me to move aside? All right, I'll cede monarchical power to King Cube. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great to see you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you always.
Really
Piers.
good. Well, that's Cube's Big Three basketball tournament. We'll be live at the O2 in London this August. You can watch the full interview on the Piers Morgan Uncensored YouTube page from right now. Uncensored next, we're used to politicians kissing babies on the campaign trail, but not nibbling and sniffing them. We'll debate what on earth Joe Biden has been up to next.
Coming up on The Talk, London crawling. 200 eco-protesters slow march through the capital. And the Prime Minister wants to crack down on useless university degrees. And would you visit the pub that's only showing women's sport? That's all coming up at 9.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored, and welcome to tonight's stellar pack. Talk TV's Esther Cracker and Lorraine Adrian. Hello.
Good evening.
Miss me?
Of course.
Oh. Look at those faces. Ever faces smiled saying yes but meant no. Those are the faces. I want to show a clip. This is President Biden, most powerful man in the world, the leader of the free world. You know he always does weird stuff these days, right?
No.
Look at what he does to this baby who he's never met. Have a look at this. Now, this was taken in Helsinki when he left the summit last week, before he boarded Air Force One. But it's so weird, Esther.
No,
what man would do that to a baby he's never met?
Yeah, I'm not usually. I usually give old people a pass because they're older and you have to respect your elders.
He's nibbling a strange baby.
There is a bigger issue at hand here, which is he just keeps making more and more gas. Everyone can see that he is becoming a bit senile.
Yeah.
And, the Democrats really need to take this conversation seriously.
I
because
agree.
this man cannot run for... I'm sorry, I don't think he'll be able to make it to the next general election. I mean, to the extent that he can still maintain his mental faculties to even do that.
I mean, all these images we're showing him falling... This is happening every week.
Bad.
Paula, defend the man. I mean...
This isn't about defending him. This is about this is about querying why it's appropriate to criticise someone for being kind to a small human. Because that's what he was doing.
I think
he was being
Let's have a look at these Hannibal Lecter impression again. Then come on, let's have another look at it. I don't think kind is the word I'd use. He's literally nibbling a baby who looks shocked and traumatized. Look at the baby.
I don't have a problem with that.
Look at her. She's just terrified.
I don't have a problem with that. But clearly, the man is losing the ability to take on social cues.
Well,
that's the bigger issue.
He's been playful.
No. That's fine.
And we can see he's been playful because we've all been there where a small child has
I've never nibbled a strange baby.
We can
I never
see
have.
the adults around.
So Paula,
also finding it very funny.
We haven't all been there.
You want to focus on bringing the man down.
I've never nibbled a strange baby.
It's desperate.
Well, it's not. It would be if it was in isolation. But if you take it in the context of him repeatedly falling over, tripping on Air Force One, falling off bikes, all the verbal gas which have been relentless, even saying God Save the Queen the other day randomly 9 months after he attended her funeral. It's a procession now of verbal and physical gaffes.
It's true. What we have is the press reporting a procession.
We're seeing them.
I agree with you.
What do you mean
I wonder why we have this focus. Is it because of his age? Is it because we think that you just cannot stand?
Well, are you joking?
As a you cannot be taken seriously.
It's not about his age. It's not about his age.
Well, if it's not about his age, what is it?
Because I know people like Joan Collins who are 10 years older and they seem half their age. The problem is not his age; it's his condition.
Well,
he looks to me to be at a fairly advanced stage now of senility, and he's the man with his finger on the trigger.
Okay, can we just...
And where do we get that information from that he looks...
From my eyes and ears.
That's your own personal view. We're not being told
No. It's a view shared by most people.
By the medics that surround him.
Do you feel comfortable that if he wins the next election, he'd be there for another 4 years, which is 6 years from now?
If that's who the voters vote in,
do you feel comfortable the President of the United States would be in that condition?
Because I believe in democracy, and that's what happens, Piers, when you're
even
voted in.
Even if he's totally gaga.
But Piers, who is saying he's totally gaga?
My eyes and ears.
Because you don't
I think
agree
you're
with
lying to
him.
yourself.
I
don't believe. I don't genuinely believe.
And by the way, if he was a Republican, she'd be saying he's totally gaga.
Have you heard medics say that he's senile?
My dear,
have we heard
this
that?
man.
All right, we've got to move on. We're going to talk about... Let's move on to another age story. So there was a fantastic game at Wimbledon yesterday.
Yes.
Alcaraz taking down Djokovic, or as somebody put it, I think it was the Times today, the kid beats the goat, which I thought was great. And it was a fantastic game, obviously. But there was another talking point, which was this guy. Let's have a look. Brad Pitt.
Oh, yes.
Who looked unbelievably youthful, right? He is 60 in December.
Yep.
Right?
Great.
And yet he doesn't look it, right? So we don't know why. And maybe it's a wonder of something. Maybe it's natural, maybe it's not. Who knows in Hollywood? But we thought we'd have a little game, which is pit the younger or older. Right? We've had a few of those in the time.
Younger.
Well, I'm going to show you some pictures of people.
Okay.
And you've got to tell me whether they're younger or older than Brad Pitt.
Wow.
Go on.
Okay.
I'm
going to say younger, but definitely looks older.
I think they're about the same age.
Boris Johnson is only younger by 6 months than Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Next. Nigel Farage.
Oh, he's definitely older.
Older, yeah.
He's younger than Pitt by 3 months.
It's in the neck, really?
Yeah, he's younger than Brad Pitt. Look at that. He looks about 20 years old, doesn't he? Okay, next one. Governor Ron DeSantis.
I think he's younger.
I think younger.
He's younger by 16 years than Brad Pitt. Look at that.
Yeah.
Huh? Next one.
Well, I know
Tom Cruise.
I know he's older.
Same age? No.
But
He's a year and a half older Cruise than Brad Pitt. And now probably the most difficult one of all.
Actually, that's a good question.
Wow, I mean, this is
same
troubling
age.
me.
No,
I
you
know,
must be younger.
no.
You have to be younger.
Easy.
I was going to say, he must be older than you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paula.
Yeah.
And thank you, not. I am younger by a year and 3 months, apparently, than Brad Pitt. I got to say, he looks good on it, Brad Pitt. I've only met Brad Pitt once, and it was at the Oscars. I was in the red carpet for CNN, and I shouted out Brad. He arrived late with Angelina when they were still talking to each other. And I've just got a brilliant picture that somebody took, and it's Brad just going, "Hey, man!" like that. That's it. That's my Brad Pitt moment. Literally just said, "Hey, man." But I remembered it, and it was a moving moment. Let's talk about, well, not another man, let's talk about a pyramid of white supremacy. The Church of England has defended teaching controversial race theory, saying kids shouldn't wait until 18 to learn about racial justice. So, teaching guidance issued by the Diocese of St Edmundsbury and Ipswich is the white supremacy pyramid. At the bottom, racial indifference and jokes, and at the top is mass murder. The suggestion being that if you don't get a grip at your school early, Esther, you become rapidly a white supremacist mass murderer. Why is this being taught in our schools?
Honestly, it's very baffling, and it's as if the church doesn't have, there aren't enough social ills to go around. There are not enough issues in society for the church to address. I grew up as an Anglican, and looking at many Anglican churches in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia in particular, looking at the Church of England and what they're doing to the religion is quite worrying. I mean, this is really a non-issue, and it has nothing to do with the Church of England. I don't understand why they need to choose politically charged topics to try and, I don't know, further the cause of God knows what.
But this presumption, Paula, that it's a bit like when they did the Gillette reboot, when they ditched their man-supporting campaign and basically made it out, if you don't do something, you're all going to be Harvey Weinstein. It's that. It's like, why go to these extremities of mass murderers if you don't deal with your critical race theory at school? It's nonsense.
So I don't think it is that. So firstly, it's not nonsense.
You've got 30 seconds to try
well,
and
exactly,
defend it.
and it's not controversial. It's called critical race theory. Remember, this is something that was born out of academics. They were lawyers. They were discussing about justice and injustice within institutions, not about individuals. And it's the church attempting to teach about injustice. That's really important.
Yeah, but it's not, though. It's telling kids they're going to be mass murderers if they carry on.
I don't agree with you, and I don't agree with that's what they're being taught,
All right.
Piers.
Got to leave it there. We'll come back to that issue, though. Good to see you. Whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored. That's all from me tonight. Good night. See you tomorrow.